Aloha, everyone. Aloha kakahiaka. Aloha Friday. I wanted to welcome you all to the pre-show. We've got about four and a half minutes or so before we count down to the live show. If you're not watching this live, you're going to want to fast forward, give or take about 5 minutes to kind of skip this early part. I'm going to bring on my buddies over here, my partners. I would say partners in crime, but it's not partners in crime. I'm going to bring on my guys over here. Dylan, aloha, good morning, Dylan, and aloha, good morning, Scott. Morning. Scott, I got you muted, so feel free to unmute yourself right now as you want. We already have 3 people on, so welcome, folks. So we've got this grand tradition now that has now become a thing, right? Okay, so we're gonna do the aloha shirt narrative. So Scott, actually, this is the first time you're wearing an aloha shirt on the show. Why don't you get there you go. Why don't you kind of fill us in on the story behind the shirt that you're wearing?
This is my family owns the Kauai Seafood Bar over in Kauai over there on the Big Island. And this was actually our uniform. So we had it embroidered with the Seafood Bar logo. It actually says Kauai Harbor Grill and Seafood Bar. The Harbor Grill doesn't exist anymore, but this shirt's from 2001. I used to bartend behind it. It was kind of my uniform, but I love the color and I love this print.
Awesome. That's a great story. Every aloha shirt carries a story, right?
It's a little dusty. I had to get it out. I got the box right over here. I got all 40 of my aloha shirts there, and you guys were showing me up, so I had to step out.
All right, good, Dylan. So what's your let's zoom in on Dylan over. What's your shirt today, Dylan?
I'm back to Sig Zane, so representing the Big Island designers, and this is a kalo print. It's green. You know, I like the colorful prints. So this is a nice one. I've had it for probably 10 plus years now. So, and the cool thing about Sig Zane is that they go out of print. So it's kind of like once you get them, you can't get the same one again in the future. So sometimes they'll reprint the same design, but they won't reprint the same color patterns. So the design on the colored shirt. So they're somewhat proprietary once you get them. So.
Awesome. Hey, now there's another little thing over. We've got about 3 minutes to go. So, Dylan, when I first saw your background this morning, the first thing I thought is, where did you get that picture for your background from? So tell us about the fake photo you've got behind you, Dylan, right now.
Yeah, this is the fake photo right in front of my house. So I actually spent the last 2 weeks moving. So we talked about this in previous shows, but my old house closes today. So it's a big day today. My old house closes and we've been moving into the new house. So this is the view out front the lanai from the new place, and the yard needs some work. It was totally overgrown. So we've cleared it all and waiting for the grass to grow back in and doing some grading and stuff. But it's been an exciting 2 weeks over here.
So I kind of want to emphasize that I was joking around when I said fake photo. That's actually not. That's actually a live. That's actually a live shot, right? I mean, right now you're. Let's. Whoops, wrong guy. There we go.
That behind me is some of the. Well, first you have some of the best farming grounds in the state. This is where Kona coffee is grown, right in the coffee belt right now in Kealakekua, and then the water behind us is some of the best fishing in the state on the Kona coast. So you can actually see the boats. It's a little bit with the lighting and stuff hard to see right now, but you can always see fishing boats from Mile and I now.
So this is a view right now that we're actually looking at. This is you're on the Big Island on the Kona side, and behind you is Kealakekua Bay, give or take. Is that close to where you're at, or where are you at roughly?
I'm in Kealakekua. Kealakekua Bay is a little bit further south from where I am. So what you're looking out in front is kind of the Keauhou. Red Hill is the landmark that fishermen use, which is down by the water. It's a big cinder cone that you pass and it looks red, so they call it Red Hill. They're real creative, But Hokulia is right below us. That's a luxury development, with a beautiful golf course and 1 acre lots. So that's the landmark as you're passing by. Actually, geographically, we're right below the hospital is where we are now. So we come off the main highway. If you know where the hospital is in Kealakekua, it's a road right below that.
All right, man. That's awesome. Well, boys and girls, it is that time. We've hit 9 o'clock, and I want to welcome everyone to our Aloha Friday Hawaii Real Estate Show. Really glad that you're all here. We got a lot of good things lined up for you today, and let's wind up into this right here. We're gonna we're going to start with a little bit of a quick update. So there's a couple of bullet points over here I wanted to get everybody updated on, and a quick discussion. So let's kind of warm this up. People have been asking about kind of what's going on with Hawaii, what's happening with the coronavirus, etc. Well, folks, the bad news is the 14-day quarantine recently was announced to be extended until July 31st. So as of a few days ago, there was an announcement from the governor's office that it's at least till July 31st. And I say at least, well, let's say it's July 31st, but there's no, right? I'm having a hard time kind of wording this one over here. And the reason why I'm having a difficulty is because our governor has not given a clear date as to when we are going to lift the quarantine. That's why I'm having a hard time. So they said July 31st, but they didn't say we're definitely lifting quarantine on August 1st. All we know right now, quarantine is still on. It's going to be on until the end of July. And I can have a whole other episode to talk about that whole topic. All right. There is the inter-island quarantine. That is going to go, that is thankfully going to end on June 6th. Now, by inter-island quarantine, what we're saying here is, if you could believe this, there was a quarantine if you were flying between islands. So if you're perfectly healthy and you flew to one of the other islands, you still had to go on quarantine unless you were part of the essential group and you were all kinds of exceptions. It's all kind of crazy. But that quarantine is going to be lifted. So that means if I decide to go and visit Dylan in the Big Island, I'm going to be able to, I don't have to kind of hang out in quarantine. Although I wouldn't mind hanging out at Dylan's house now that we kind of see his background. If you're going to do quarantine, if you're going to be quarantined for 14 days, that's the place to be quarantined. But that's kind of where that's at. Local businesses are opening slowly. There's a general lifting of businesses. They're pretty much, most of them are allowed to open. I think only a handful are still being closed, like out and out bars, large gatherings, things of that nature. But for the most part, local businesses are opening slowly. Here's some news. You probably haven't heard about this, but there has been a lawsuit has been filed against Governor Ige from two separate groups. One group coming from a constitutional kind of a perspective, saying the governor's emergency rulings are good in law for 60 days. This has gone way beyond 60 days. He no longer has authority to have that emergency ruling. So that's being started to fight in court. And there are some others who are more of a equal protection kind of clause. These are short-term vacation rental owners on the neighbor islands that have said, hey, this is, you're allowing some businesses open, but you're not allowing us to open. There's a legality issue here. And I think they've threatened to sue. I don't think they've actually filed suit. The first one has been filed. The other ones have been threatened. That's the quick one I've got now. So on to our real estate. We had a couple things that are related to this. And I think this is I kind of want to segue into Scott and Dylan, because I know they've got some things that you guys want to share about what's going on with the real estate market. So here's the question on this last bullet point, which is cheaper to buy a home now. Jay from Minnesota says, hey, is it cheaper to buy a home now in Hawaii with COVID-19 going on? What's going on with real estate? So that's the lead-in question. Dylan, why don't you kind of give us a quick thing on where that's at? Give a quick note, and then we'll skip over to Scott, and Scott will throw in his 2 cents.
The short answer is not yet necessarily. We did have the new market numbers come out for May, and there was overall on the Big Island, a small drop in the median price, but that somewhat is you can attribute to less higher end properties selling. So the properties that are $1 million plus, those buyers are usually from the mainland, and there wasn't as much volume there. There was a big drop off in the number of a 44% decrease in the number of properties that sold. So definitely less properties, but the prices haven't fallen dramatically yet. So not cheaper yet.
Not cheaper yet. Scott, what's your take on what's a quick overview of what's happening on Oahu?
Yeah, same concept. On the single family home side or the workforce housing price point, yeah, it's still restricted supply. In fact, we are seeing more listings coming on, which is good, but there's more buyers in the market. In fact, the pending sales picked up, which means more buyers buying. So yeah, on the single family home side, prices are still increasing right now. The condo side started to change. We did have a little bit of a drop on the condo side, and more new listings came on, but far less sales. So the condo side should be pretty interesting, and it's that condo side is going to segment out into different areas. So Waikiki, Kaka'ako, I have a feeling will take a bit of a hit, and the workforce housing, townhomes, condo side will do well.
So, Scott, what I'm catching from you is that condo prices are taking a little bit of a dip, but single family home prices have gone up.
Correct.
I got that.
And it's
Dylan,
the workforce housing side.
Workforce housing side. Dylan, I'm sorry, I didn't catch exactly what's your summary on Big Island. The prices have gone up a bit. What's happened to prices?
Well, the median price fell 10% on the Big Island, but that can be attributed to, median is the middle house, right? Not the average price. And
right.
That is mainly attributed to there's less higher end home selling. And like Scott said, the workforce housing, that $500,000 to $800,000 house is still selling. And the actual median price went up in the Kona market. So overall, island-wide, it went down a little bit, but it went up 17% across in just the Kona market. So, definitely pretty stable in terms of prices.
So interesting. So kind of what I'm hearing about is there's been a lot of, I remember almost been a consistent theme in practically every show that we've done. People are asking about questions that are related to kind of timing. Should I wait until the market drops? I want to buy. I'm not seeing it. At least not yet.
Not yet.
No, and I still go back to the fact that, interest rates this past week almost hit historic lows again, right? So we were at 4.5% last year, now we're at like 3.25 right now. That's where your affordability came in. That's an effect, almost a 15-20% price drop if you equate it out. And people buy usually based on their mortgage payment. So that created more buyers in the market than sellers.
So Dylan, Mark just popped in. And I think it's related to what we're talking about, because I think that there's COVID. I think the economics, the forecast for economics does not look good. There's no question about that. And if the governor keeps doing what he's doing, it's going to be, rather devastating. Is there any place, not just, Mark says, are there places on the Big Island to live where tourism does not have a major impact? I think that's almost a statewide question. Is there any place in the state where tourism does not have a major impact? Now, I don't know what Mark means exactly by major impact, but Dylan, what's your lightning fast response to that? How would you what's your one-liner on that?
Well, the most tourism is really relegated to the west side of the island, right? If you think about just the resorts and the hotels, but the whole island is a destination. So the whole island has restaurants and tour guides and other, parks and things like that benefit from the tourists that maybe mostly lodge on the west side. So, you may not see as big of an impact on the east side, the southern side of the islands, where you don't have as much lodging, but at the same time, a lot of those businesses do thrive off of the tourists that pass through when they're here on vacation. So I don't know if you can exempt any part of the Big Island anyway.
Yeah. So Scott, is there anything you want to add to that as far as Oahu goes?
Yeah, there's neighborhoods right now that are doing really well performance wise, and it goes back to the workforce housing areas. Eva Beach has done very well. In fact, the price went up 7%. However, there's a fair amount of people in Eva Beach that work in those hotels and things where there's no tourists right now. So there is going to be an impact. But, a place like Waikiki where there are no vacation rentals right now, you have no income coming in from that area should get hurt worse than a place such as Eva Beach, where they're not dependent on the short-term vacation rental income.
So really the kind of the moral of the story over here is that there's nothing that's like a clear, obvious, buy or sell signal. It's a complicated market. There's a lot of things going on. Some parts are affected by the real estate. Some parts are not some parts are being affected negatively, some positively. There's really no generic, one-liner answer that applies to the whole thing.
I can give you two quick examples just to show the differences.
Cool. Yeah, quick examples.
Waikiki, I pulled up Waikiki $1 million plus condos. How many sold in the last 2 months? 1. There's 93 on the market. There's 1 in escrow. That means 93 people at $1 million plus on those condos were fighting for one buyer. Now, I just brought on a Hawaii Kai home, and I've had 20 showings in 4 days. We're doing a Sunday offer submission at 5 p.m. and I'm going to have probably 4 to 6 offers on that. Completely different markets.
Yeah, that's a great story.
And then we also can't forget about, I wrote my first offer yesterday for somebody who's going to accelerate their timeline on moving here, and is just going to buy sight unseen. So that buyer demand is going to be out there, which should prop prices up also, because people are going to want to be here sooner rather than later based on what's going on in the rest of the world right now.
Yep.
You know, I don't have any kind of hard data to kind of back this up. I just have sort of empirical feeling, but I've gotten, more emails and more responses now on the content on the site, livinginhawaii.com, about people saying, boy, I kind of want to live there now more than ever before. The world here is kind of crazy. This is one more reason why I want to live in Hawaii. I think that's going to be a really interesting thing. And actually, I'm going to riff on that just for a minute, just because I think there's an interesting thing going on. This is more of a local issue, but I think what people aren't understanding is there's a sentiment here locally. There was a recent poll, for example, where 70% of the people were in favor of keeping the tourism market closed, even if there was going to be economic fallout. 70%. Now, I think that's going to change when all the government funding programs kind of evaporate. That's all going to change, but it might be a little too late back then. But I think what's interesting is that there's been also other reports of that has said that economists are predicting that many people are going to be forced to leave Hawaii because of the economic fallout that's going to happen as a result of the visitor industry. So I think, to me, what's interesting on this is that it's going to go. There's a cultural thing going on where, on one hand, the local folks don't want outsiders coming in, and on the other hand, there's a move to kind of essentially, keep the economy destroyed. And so you're going to have this sort of, crazy unintended consequence. And the unintended consequence is you're going to have a lot of people moving out. And the people that are going to be moving here, the ones that we're talking to, are those that are wealthy, those that don't have to worry about getting a job, those that are economically beneficial. And so there's going to be a potentially interesting dynamic that this whole thing is creating. And I don't think that people have thought through all of the unintended consequences going on.
The other consideration with that I always talk about, especially with polling, is that people give the answer that they think they're supposed to give, right? And I'm seeing that in society right now, where nobody really says we should open up and get back to work publicly, but everybody says it privately. I mean, I've been dealing with tons of contractors and different people, and just coming into contact with friends and stuff, and it's politically correct to say we should stay shut down and not let people come in. But I think people in there privately understand the consequences. So, that 70% number, I don't know how accurate that is. If you put it in context or add some other information to that question.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a talking point. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I also think, you ask the people that question right now where they're not totally hurting. Give it a few more months. Ask that question again once you're in a real, you could be in a real bind. I mean, you can continue to go on this path. Obviously, it's going to have significant economic implications. Ask that question in a few months when somebody's sitting in a different position from an economic standpoint. I think the answer would be significantly different.
Well, and I think a lot of what Dylan is saying applies as well on polls. You'll want to kind of answer the way you think you should answer, as opposed to what you really kind of feel inside. I'll take Ralph's question here real quick. Interesting comments about the housing market, but we're more concerned about moving to the islands right in the middle of an economic crisis with extremes in unemployment. I got to say, and I don't know what you guys think about this, but I got to say, if you're in a situation right now where you're going to need to find a job in Hawaii, unless you have some extraordinary rare skill that does not exist in the islands, the unemployment rate is beyond record high. I don't know if there's a historical context. It's like at 22%. We have like the highest or the second highest rate of unemployment in Hawaii. Again, unless you have an extraordinary skill or something that's very, very rare and sought after, finding a job in Hawaii right now is probably one of the toughest things that you're going to be looking into, I would say. You guys want to comment on that one real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I got excited. I don't want to say excited, because obviously we don't want to go through this, but whenever we have these sharp adjustments, something comes out of left field economically, I actually get excited because it forces us out of our comfort zone. This is a time when we have to change. And I actually think we're going to see a lot of shift and change in the job sector, not only certain sectors doing really well, while others like tourism are going to have some difficulty. But I think there'll be job creation opportunities, new things. I mean, part of what we're doing right now via video is kind of come out of that, right? So I look at, what are the ideas of the concepts that we run with coming out of this, and there'll be new opportunities.
And spoken like a true entrepreneur, there's always opportunities. I mean, no, and you're 100% right. I mean, you're 100% right. Well, 100% right. As a fellow entrepreneur, this is when opportunities are always made. For the entrepreneur crowd, for the job seeking crowd, it's a little bit of a different story. Job seeking crowd's a little bit of a different story. All right, let's get on to some more real estate questions over here that we've gotten. Let's open up this one here. So this is actually a two-part question I've got. There's sort of like an Oahu question, and there's also a Big Island question on this. But let me read through these real quick, and then we'll get into a discussion. So we have a question from Mark in Santiago, Chile. That's so cool about the internet, right? So with respect to Oahu and the Big Island, where can you get the most bang for your buck in terms of buying a home? In the last show, Dylan mentioned something about good homes near Waikoloa Road for about $500,000. Is that the most reasonable situation in terms of quality price? George from Bristol. Hey, are there certain islands that are leasehold only versus fee simple? It's a little bit of a side question. That's right. Which island is most cost efficient when purchasing property? Is that the Big Island? And then on the Big Island part, we had one from Diana Little from Wichita, Kansas. And she said, on the Big Island of Hawaii, in your opinion, what area is the next up and coming community? So we get a couple of questions over here, which is like, bang for the buck, average condo home, average price for a condo home. Where's the best price value on the island? Scott, would you please kind of open this up first? We've got a lot of questions about, and we've had these discussions between us many times about, prices that people are looking for to spend on Oahu. The last show, we had someone who was asking about a home for $350,000 in Lanikai. Let's open this up by what should you expect to pay, give or take, average price, so and so forth, for a reasonable home, condo or home on Oahu. Let's start with that one first.
Yeah, so median condo price on Oahu is $429,000 this month, and median single-family home price is $797,000. So that kind of gives you an idea as far as kind of where we stand. If you want a condo, more or less a decent quality condo, non-walk-up, elevator, security, things such as that, you're probably starting about $300,000 and going up from there. And in fact, and when I say going up, Anaha somebody just put a penthouse at Anaha in escrow for $19 million. So that kind of gives
what's Anaha? You said what's Anaha? I never heard of it.
Anaha is one of the condo towers, Howard Hughes condo towers down in Kaka'ako. But I noticed it went into escrow not too long ago, and it was listed at $19 million. So that's kind of your range, right. $300,000 to $19 million.
$19 million. Good. Dylan, skip over to you. What's the given rate for, if I'm looking for a home or a condo on the Big Island, what's the price range I should be thinking about?
Yeah, and of course there's a big range over here too, but what you really want to consider is your lifestyle. What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? What kind of area do you want to be in? Because on the Big Island in Kona, the median price is $730,000 this past month. On the Big Island in general, it was $370,000. So about half in terms of the island-wide median price. And so there's plenty of places on the island where you can get a really nice home for $200,000 or $300,000, but you're going to be in a very rural area. You may be on catchment water. You may be in a substandard subdivision where you don't have real nice paved roads. But if those types of things appeal to you, and that's the kind of lifestyle you want to live, and you want to, you don't mind driving 45 minutes to Walmart or Kmart or Costco, there's definitely options at a lower price point. It just depends on what your lifestyle desires are and what kind of amenities you want to be nearby. And weather's a big one too. The wetter side of the island is always going to be cheaper on the Big Island than the dry side with the beautiful weather.
Yeah, there was I had a question about that from another subscriber a while ago. He emailed me and said, hey, what's ask for sort of rainfall numbers and sort of dryness numbers. And I said, look, generally speaking, the east side of all the islands are the wetter tropical side, and the west side of all the islands are typically the drier side, just because of the way that the mountains work and the way the weather pattern works. Okay, so let's kind of shift into a little bit of a different discussion that's related to this question here, which is talked about a let's switch this to you here. The best price value for island. I think this goes back to, again, a lot of questions that I get from folks that are looking at this sort of on a statewide basis, and they're saying, okay, where am I going to get the best? Where is the best price? And I think that's a big question, because clearly I think Big Island's got, in terms of actual dollar amounts, got the lower price. But like you said, Dylan, are you going to go with catchment water, where catchment means you're literally catching the water from rain, and the rainwater goes into a big pool, and you pull that water out of a pool for your water. You want catchment water. Or Scott, are we going to live in Kakako? And Kakako, by the way, is an up and coming district being massively redeveloped just outside of downtown Honolulu. Very, very high end condos. You mentioned the $19 million condo, stunning views of the ocean, Ala Moana Beach Park. It's becoming a very, very high end area. So you get that whole range in between. So how do you answer that? Scott, when someone says, hey, where's the best price value? I saw homes for, way low out in Makaha or whatever. How do you respond to that?
Well, it does come down to lifestyle, and that's part of it. And that's why I say best bang for the buck to me is Ewa Beach, because you get the newer construction, which a lot of mainland people are used to, wanting that newer construction master plan community. And there you can get, on the single family home side, the low is 475 up to 1.45 million. That low side is around 1,000 square feet. And on the high side, you're up 4,000 square feet of home. And the median is 700,000 in Ewa. And I say best bang for the buck because it gives you the newer construction and the commute. You have access to all the, kind of restaurants, big box stores, and the commute's a little longer, but it's not the Makaha commute. And the Makaha, you can get more affordable housing out there, but there's a cultural element, there's an economic element, and then you have a much further commute. But it's quiet and peaceful out that side. It's more country. So what do you want from a lifestyle?
Yeah, that's a right one. So Dylan, how do you answer that on your end when someone are, roughly interested, like, okay, where's the best, best price, where's the best place to buy on the Big Island? That's such a generic question, but I'm sure you get it all the time, right? And so how do you respond to that?
Well, first I ask them what they're looking for, and then I can narrow down the types of things and lifestyle type things that they're looking for. But, in general, if you're looking for oceanfront property, you're going to get a much better deal on the Big Island than you're going to get on Oahu or Maui or one of the other islands. I mean, you can still get a direct oceanfront, really nice house for the low 1 millions, under $2 million. And you try to go to another island, I mean, you're looking at multiple millions of dollars for a home like that. So if that's something you're looking for, then, definitely come to the Big Island. But if you just want a really nice house on an acre of land, you don't mind the rural lifestyle, I mean, you can definitely get a really good deal over here, as long as you don't mind the commute. And the commute on the Big Island is very different than the commute on especially Oahu, where you have traffic and freeways. On the Big Island, you have 2-lane highways, and it may take you 45 minutes, but it's usually a scenic, beautiful drive. And so most people can live with that more than sitting in 6 lanes of traffic.
Dylan, I just want to mention, I don't know if you're catching it, but I'm hearing it. We're hearing the birds in your backyard, which is like totally awesome. It's just a way of telling people that his background, everyone, if you've just joined the show, Dylan's background, let's bring Dylan here. So Dylan's background is not fake. That's a live shot right now in his backyard. I wish Dylan that you could kind of go out and shake that tree to kind of prove people that it's a live background, but that is a live video shot. That is you're sitting on your lanai right now, right? It looks like. Are you sitting?
Correct.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, that's
birds win. You're getting it all. This is real stuff.
Yeah, it's the real deal. I love it. So listen, while we're talking about the Big Island, is there anything real quick that you have about, is there such a thing of an up and coming, if there's such a thing? Of course there is. What is the up and coming area, or is there an up and coming area on the Big Island? I'm assuming that what Diana is really asking about is hey, if I was going to buy somewhere, kind of where is a place that I could get a little bit of upside? I would think kind of buying in now and kind of have it grow. How do you respond to that, Dylan?
In general, if you're looking at like new construction and like a new neighborhood or something like that, we have very little to none of that happening on the Big Island. Most of the neighborhoods are already built, or they're agricultural subdivisions that are vacant land, so you can buy and build there. But there's very little brand new construction, like in terms of master plan developments that you can point to. Like Scott is talking about with Ewa Beach, there's a lot of nice new master plan developments coming up, and it's an up and coming area. But It's more, I would say, up and coming markets if you're looking for an investment. And we've talked about this on past shows. Because of vacation rental regulations, I think the zoned vacation rental condos that where you can vacation rent are an up and coming market in terms of value, because they're going to have basically no new competition from homes and other types of housing where they don't have the correct zoning and can't get the permit to vacation rent. So there's going to be a restriction on supply, and there's going to be definitely more demand once visitors return for vacation rentals that are properly zoned.
I wanted to just to go back to this and have a discussion between the three of us here. Ralph replied back, and he said, "Hey, we're retiring, so our concern is not about finding a job, but about the negative societal issues that arise from such unemployment." And I think that's that's an interesting topic that I kind of want us to kind of riff on real quick and discuss. And I think it also kind of goes back to I'm coming up with a video probably next week to talk about the George Floyd demonstrations and protests that we had here on Oahu, and I think they had some on the neighbor islands too as well. Really quick on those, they were widely held. We had on Oahu, we had 10,000 people attending, and there wasn't a single reported incident of violence, and that was a great thing. That's really what Hawaii is all about. I think what I'm hearing, I'm going to guess what Ralph is kind of asking is like, hey, is there going to be sort of, big time societal kind of upheavals, due to the job loss and economic fallout. Here's my quick take, and I want to hear what you guys think. Let's discuss this. My quick take is Hawaii's pretty much Aloha spirit. I see fallout, I see etc. I don't see rioting and looting in the streets. I don't see it. Not to say it can happen, not to say some sort of flash event could occur. And as sad as it is going to be, I hope it does not come to this where many folks have to leave. I hope that is not the case. But I don't see societal Hawaii. That's just not Hawaii to do that. Dylan, what's your take?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way I can describe this is you don't throw your trash on your living room floor, right? And if you live here in Hawaii, regardless of how tough things get, and like you mentioned, Peter, people a lot of times end up just moving to Vegas, moving to California, somewhere where there's more opportunities, instead of staying here and suffering, which is unfortunate. But everybody knows everybody, and you're not going to go and loot stores and do things because your auntie works there or your classmate's mom works there or whatever it is. So that's why I really don't think you see that here, is because it's such a small community, and you can't have, like in these mainland cities, a lot of these people causing chaos in mainland cities are driving in from outskirts, other areas, other cities, other states, and they don't care. They don't have that same sense of community where you just don't do that in your own house, and that's why it's never happened before. I don't see it happening again. It didn't happen during the downturn in 9/11. It didn't happen in the big housing bust in 2007 to 2008. We've gone through tough times before. We've had a big Japanese bubble in the 90s. I mean, there's been plenty of major recessions and hardships, and we just don't see that. And you can look at all of the controversial things that happened, the telescope on Mauna Kea and other things, and there are always peaceful demonstrations. People demonstrate with aloha, kapu aloha, right? Is the term, and it's just not like that. It's not part of the culture here, and we don't have the opportunity for people to bring an outside culture,
Yeah, you've laid out a couple of really good things.
Drive and bring that here. So
yeah, no, you just froze up on me real quick. So just be aware of your connection out there. But you're back to normal. Scott, you want to add anything on to this topic? It's a pretty big one.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that Dylan said. I don't think it's a part of our cultural fabric. If you go and loot down there or whatever, I would say the community here is more of band around each other and help each other out. People here, more so than even when I grew up in North Carolina, tend to take care of each other here more so than anything I've ever seen on the mainland. And it's just not in the fabric of the culture to go in that direction. In fact, I would say the community here goes in the opposite direction in banding together and helping each other out and leaning on each other more so than trying to create unrest. And everybody knows each other. Somebody goes loots down in the store down there, the community is looking down upon them and their family at that point. It's the exact opposite.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. That's you both had mentioned that, and I think it's a really big key. And I've talked about this, and I do talk about this in the video too, because everybody knows everybody. If you're gonna be engaging in looting, there's a really good chance that you're related to the person that you're looting. There's a really good chance that there's a connection there. See, and by the way, everyone, notice how both guys laughed at that same as soon as I said that. That kind of really tells you sort of an element of truth to that, right? Everyone knows, everyone here is connected. We are connected, and it's a really different place. And I think it's one of the things that makes Hawaii such an incredibly desirable place to live. If you can deal, it's not, that's not all cherry, it's not all rainbows and unicorns, but if you can deal with the difficulties and the challenges, it's an incredible place. All right, thanks guys. That's great feedback. All right, let's get on to our next question over here. And this is a good one. And I think it's related again to these topics of change. So Scott, to your point. So this is a big one here. So this comes from Brad in San Francisco. And he says, hello, my wife and I have been interested in moving to Maui for a few years and have been waiting for the right time in regards to our work. Now that COVID-19 has shifted our jobs to work from home, likely permanently, our chance of moving out there is higher than ever. Two questions. Do you anticipate that more people in our similar position of work from home will capitalize this and move to Hawaii? And two, if there are more mainlanders moving to Hawaii, do you think that locals will have a negative view of this? So this is kind of back to related to what we talked about. I think we addressed the question about the negative impact on mainland, on the negative view of people on the mainland. We just talked about it now. We talked about it at the last show. But what about this work from home thing? I'm seeing this I have a good friend, and he's become a good friend. He came over 2 years ago. His name is Brian, and he's kind of got a work from home job, and for him it's perfect. His situation is he sells to the medical industry, and for him it's actually even better because almost all of his work was with phone calls, and all of his work and previously was done to making calls late at night after dinner, say 8 p.m. or so. So before, when he lived on the mainland, he had to wait until 8 o'clock at night. He'd be working late. But now, Hawaii, we're 6 hours behind the mainland. So making a call to someone at 8 o'clock in East Coast time is only 2 o'clock Hawaii time. So Brian goes surfing in the morning and he enjoys himself he works in the afternoon. So for him, it's perfect. Have you guys been sensing anything on this work? There is this new work from home crowd. I think the COVID thing is showing us that, hey, you can do a lot of stuff over Zoom, and geez, we don't need to meet anymore not anymore in person, but we don't need to meet in person the way we used to. What do you guys think do you guys have any sense? Have you gotten any kind of on the boots feedback? Scott, have you gotten any on the boots feedback on this thing?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's two elements here, and you and I, Peter, actually started working back around 2005 when I was doing all the tech stuff with Kahala Associates, and
Yep.
My whole vision in creating that was, hey, I want to be able to do everything that I need to do anywhere in the world except for what I have to physically be present for. So, I think just in general, naturally, we've been progressing in that direction no matter what, and COVID is probably going to magnify and speed that up. So, working remotely is not brand new. People have been doing it. But I definitely think there's going to be more of it. And people are probably going to realize, hey, the lifestyle's nice out here. And the more corporations move away from, hey, you got to be in this office at that desk from 8 to 5, and they give them more freedom, then yeah, I think you'll see more of it. Then it comes down, the other question to me though also is, okay, how does the home designs, do they start changing to accommodate for that?
That's a really good. We tacked on a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house onto our existing 3-bedroom house. 10 years ago, and that became the basis of the business. Dylan, is there any kind of boots on the ground sort of things you're catching from potential buyers or people that are talking to you about this work from home kind of a thing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's definitely people seeing that opportunity. I'm having a lot more conversations about that with folks. And the other dynamic I see happening with that is it's going to allow people that are already here, local people, to stay here, because instead of having to move somewhere in the mainland for a job, they may be able to do that job from home, or it's also going to allow people to return. I have had some conversations with friends that moved to Washington or Seattle or something for a tech job, that now they're seeing they don't have to actually go into an office anymore, and they may allow them to remotely work. So definitely, I think that's going to have an impact, but it may not just mean people moving here, maybe people staying here or returning here. So it should, it's another thing to look forward to in terms of housing demand. If we're talking real estate, is definitely will put more demand on the market, and potentially could keep prices stable instead of having this big drop off that people think may be coming.
Yeah, there's something I want to mention. Actually, thanks, Dylan. That's exactly right. I appreciate that's great on the boots feedback. I can't help it. I'm hearing the birds. I want to make a comment about your background, and here's the thing that's actually really, this is a kind of a subtle kind of thing, but I want people to kind of understand this. So let's bring Dylan. Okay. So here's the thing, right? So folks, now listen quietly. So listen carefully. You can hear the birds, but Dylan, you do not have a windscreen on your mic. And we had a little bit of wind noise here and there, a little bit, but there is no wind noise at all. And you're sitting essentially outside right now. You're essentially sitting outside, right? So it's like, and if you look at the palm tree behind you, as I look at your screen to my left, it's to your right. The palm tree over your right shoulder is barely moving. So I just kind of want to tell people how incredibly perfect the weather is over there. And I don't see sweat. I don't see sweat balls coming down your forehead, at least not yet. So what's the weather like out there right now, Dylan? Right now,
it's probably 74 right now, I would say, and it's
74.
Overcast.
Really?
Yeah, I mean it's cool. I live at about 1,500 foot elevation, so
you're up high, right?
Yeah,
right,
so
right.
it doesn't. I mean, if it gets to 85, it's a really hot day, and we just had the sun was out this morning, but the little overcast just came in, so it's actually really cool and beautiful right now. Just totally perfect. Doesn't get any better than this.
Man, I 74. My wife, frankly, for me, 74 is like the lowest number. I will not put my air conditioner in my car below 74. Below that's too damn cold for me. So
yeah.
But I could see 74 on a sunny day with no wind, just perfection.
Perfect,
Absolute perfection. Just a quick thing, a quick one. Brian, the guy I mentioned, Brian Szymanski, is the guy that we actually go surfing together in Makapu when from time to time. And so Brian's the guy, he just tuned in, and he's the guy that works from home, got that work from home job. And that's a really good point you brought up, Dylan, about working from home, folks returning back to Hawaii and folks staying in Hawaii. I certainly hope that is definitely the case. All right, so I think we took care of that one.
And one more mention on that. The other thing that it's going to do, I think, is have a real impact on businesses, right? So businesses have a huge expense. The traditional business, when they have a real estate expense, right? They have a commercial lease, or they got to maintain a property. That's a huge expense that takes away from their ability to compensate their employees. And this is another positive benefit that can come out of all of this, is if a business no longer needs that 3,000 square foot space that they're spending $10,000 a month on, and they can just buy computers for all their employees and corporate Zoom account to do their meetings. That's raises that they can give their employees, better health benefits, better bonuses at the end of the year. There's a lot of benefit that can come from that. And that may also allow people to stay here and create more job opportunities.
Yeah. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah. And the other aspect to that for me on the commercial side, think about office space now. If the companies don't need as much space and people are starting to work at home more, okay, well, how does the office sector start to shape? And to me, you're going to have much more leasable office space than you might have demand at that point. And so, I see there being some really interesting dynamics that start to come out of this whole thing.
We are definitely going to be in a different world, to say the least. Go ahead, Scott. Yeah.
On a side note, it would be really interesting at one point to talk about kind of the history of where we've been from land and where the supply demand imbalance has come from and how it started. Because you look at MLS books back in the day where the realtors had it and you were off island, you didn't know anything about real estate. Now we're not only on the internet where we had dial up, but we're at high dynamic, you got videos and videos and lots of high res photos where you can do all your research, Google Street View before you land. So it's removed the barriers of entry. It'd be an interesting topic to talk about one of these times.
Make a note of that one, and we'll put that in your notes, and let's hit that for a future show. All right, good. Let's move on here, and we're going to do a quick station break over here. Not a station break, but a station ID. So, just want to give everybody a heads up here. If you're watching this video and you did not get a newsletter to remind you about it, you definitely want to go to the website livinginhawaii.com. It is all about people who we connect with, people that want to live in Hawaii. And if that's you want to go to that website, you'll get a pop-up after a few seconds to ask you to get on the newsletter. And it's that newsletter that goes out every week that either talks about the show, about upcoming shows. There's articles that go on every week. YouTube channel. It's great stuff. You become a part of the Ohana here, a part of the family. So I want to give everybody a shout out to be a part of that. Join us. Okay. Let's try something new here. So I'm going to try this lightning round. I'm going to borrow this from Fox News Sunday here. Not that I watch Fox News anymore. I cut cable a long time ago. It's the best thing I ever did. But anyway, that's all beside the point, because I thought the lightning round was a really good idea. So we got a couple of really quick questions over here, and I want to see. So Dylan and Scott, I want to kind of see if we can kind of do one-liners on each of these things. We'll just go right down the line and do a one-liner on it, and see if we can kind of hit that. So let's talk property tax rates. So I'm going to keep us all on the screen here. We're doing one-liners. So Scott, generally speaking, property tax rate, what is it on Oahu?
3.5 cents per every $1,000 of assessed value. We have some of the lowest residential property tax rates in the country. So $500,000 property, the tax assessed at $500,000, which is usually valued a little more market-wise, $1,750 a year on your property taxes with no exemption. You can get an exemption.
That's crazy low. Dylan, what's the property tax rate on the Big Island?
For if you're an owner occupant, 0.6% is the best ballpark figure to use. It's about double that. It's 1.1% if you're in a just a regular residential rate where you don't use the home as your primary residence. Okay,
so point zero. You said 0.6% or 0.6%?
Yeah, 0.6%. Yeah.
So 0.6% if you're a resident, double that, give or take, if you're if you're renting the property out, if it's a commercial.
It's a little bit complicated, not a one-liner, but you also have to take into account exemptions. So you get an $80,000 exemption if you're an owner occupant. If you're 60, there's another exemption. If you're 70, there's another exemption. If you're a disabled veteran, there's another exemption. So there's all kinds of exemptions that can really bring your property tax rates low. But like Scott said, in general, some of the lowest property tax rates in the country.
That's another topic that what I have about that. What's the history behind why we have such low property tax rates? It's actually astounding if you compare. But that's for another show. Okay, so next one. Somebody wanted to ask for an update on the transient bills on Oahu and Big Island. I think we talked about this at previous shows. Scott, is there something new that's come on the transient bills for Oahu that we have? Because we've talked about this in previous shows already. Is there anything new?
Not new, but no. I mean, you're effectively talking resort areas more or less. But what we might want to do is get the actual ordinance, and you can potentially do a post on your website about it, or we can do a discussion point on the details of it.
Okay, because we spoke about this at the last show, I think, right? The previous show. So Dylan, is there anything new that
the important update, the breaking news here that came out like 2 days ago is our planning department is interpreting the emergency proclamation to mean that if you are a short-term rental, you cannot long-term rent your property. So what they're saying is you will forfeit your short-term rental permit if you take your hat off as a short-term rental and then start renting it long-term, which seems completely counterproductive, because if you are a local resident and you're looking for a rental and there's a short-term vacation rental that wants to sign a 6-month lease with you so they can at least fill their property and make some income, the planning department is saying you cannot do that, and you will forfeit your permit if you do that.
Wow. Well, that is breaking news. Thanks. Well, what's that?
Stand by for lawsuits on that one.
Stand by. Yeah. I kind of don't know what I can't say I know what people are thinking when I hear laws like that. I mean, it's just like, don't you realize the unintended consequences that you're going to get as a result of that? I mean,
well, there, and the conspiracy theory is that our current administration just hates short-term rentals, and they're doing everything they can to hurt them. And the best way to put them out of business is to just make them sit vacant for months upon months, using the emergency proclamation as a reasoning to do so.
Let's kick farther down, right? And then on top of it, tourism is our biggest industry. So you're gonna hurt those people that would actually house tourists, that makes no sense.
There's a lot of things, folks. If you haven't gotten this yet, there's a lot of I think Hawaii is and Dylan, you would know about this better than any of us. You had a way back when you were young, you had a political history, a lot of political experience in Hawaii. I think what's going on with this whole COVID thing is it's really exposing Hawaii's soft underbelly of very extraordinarily dysfunctional political system. Is exposing the massive deficiencies in Hawaii's really weak political system. But that's for another show. That's another topic. That's another topic. We're okay. Yeah. Back to the lightning round. So much for the lightning round. Okay, back to the lightning round here. Short-term rentals on Oahu. Okay, real quick one. This is from Alex. He says, "Look, we live in New York, but we've been living in Abu Dhabi for the past year. Where can I find short-term rentals on Oahu? I'm looking for a 2-month furnished apartment during the summer." Well, Scott, what's your quick answer? What's your one-liner answer on that one?
Well, if it's 2-month rental, I mean, most places will apply because less than 30 days is considered transient, short-term vacation rental. But more than 30 days, under 6 months is still classified as short-term. You got to pay the TAT, the tax, the transient tax. But most residential properties zoning-wise are minimum 30 days. Then if you get into condos, then if the association is more restrictive, some of them have 6-month minimum, even though you're technically from the zoning standpoint allowed to do 30-day minimum.
I'm going to put a link in the description. I've got a link to a website that does a sort of corporate homes for rent that is suited. It's not like Airbnb because they're not like short term like an Airbnb short term rental. It's more of a longer term, but not like a 6 month. It's kind of between, almost like what Alex here has been asking for. Okay, next up on this lightning round, Jim, New York City says, what are the average closing times on Oahu? I'm talking about Jim. I'm assuming you're asking about close a real estate transaction. Scott, what's your quick answer on that one?
Average is 45, 30 to 60 days is kind of the standard. I've closed them in as fast as 12 days, but most are 30 to 60.
30 to 60. Dylan, what's the closing time? What's the closing times on the Big Island?
Same. That's pretty much a statewide standard because of our laws in terms of funding and recording timelines. And the big determining factor is whether you're doing cash or you're doing financing. If you're doing financing, you're definitely going to look at 45 to 60 days. If you're doing cash, you can do 30 days, sometimes a little bit less if you really rush it, depending on how busy the title companies are processing the transaction.
Excellent. I can't get enough of the birds in the background, and I can't help it because I love it when it's coming at my house and it comes over every morning. So hearing from yours just makes me feel good. Okay, last one on this lightning round over here. Alec from Washington, New Jersey says, "Are there any specific rules for renting if you are single?" Well, I don't know if things have changed, but when I was single and I rented over here, I didn't have too much of a hard time. I came up with my deposit. I was able to kind of qualify, etc. Scott, is there anything strange about these days about renting while single? Is there like a law against that, renting while single?
No, but you are talking about you can't discriminate, based on familial status and things. So no, the playing field is supposed to be level for everybody.
So, Dylan, is there a cultural thing on the Big Island if you rent while single? Is there anything wrong with that?
Nope. Actually, most people will prefer it because it means less wear and tear and damage on their rental.
Yeah, good point.
So although they can't discriminate, if they have 3 applicants to choose from and one is a clean single person, that's going to be working from home or something, that you may be more attractive, but they can't choose you based upon that.
Excellent.
Or you can't advertise based upon that, right? You can't say I'm only renting to single people unless it's a room inside of your house. Then you have, and again, this is a complicated discussion about fair housing laws, but there is some factors that you can use if you're renting inside of your home. But if it's a regular rental property, you cannot discriminate.
Got it. All right, guys. Thanks for that lightning round. We'll see if folks like that. We'll bring it back next time. I think it's a good way to round up some quick. I did skip one bullet point: leasehold and fee simple. The one liner on that is I've got a bunch of links that I'll put in the description. I've come up with a whole series of videos on leasehold and fee simple and all the differences. So we could talk about that at another time as well. All right, let's move on. So here's one. I think this is probably the last question of the show, I believe. It's almost like this is going to be a battle of the islands kind of a discussion that we're going to have over here. So here's the question. This is Joshua in Seattle, and he says, "What island is best for families? We have a daughter, but I'm also financially responsible for my elderly mother. We have a high-level income and want to be in a peaceful place, which is good for families and also good access to the essentials like Costco, Target, etc." So this is a kind of a statewide discussion over here. Scott, why don't you open this one up over here? If Joshua says, what's the best island for given these things, how would you respond?
Yeah, I mean, I worked on the Big Island doing real estate and here, and for me, kind of the main thing is from trauma centers here on Oahu. Your specialists are here on Oahu. So when it comes to healthcare beyond the standards. Going to your standard doctor and whatnot. The specialists are over here. A lot of people from the outer islands fly over to see their doctors and things. So that's probably the one element. Then it comes down to lifestyle. I mean, I love Oahu, and part of the reason I moved over here is because I can work hard and play hard. So you have the urban element, you have the things that come with city living, but yet 30, 40 minutes and I'm out in the country and I can get away from all that. Where the outer islands are a little more quiet. I go over to the Big Island to relax at my family's place down in Puako. So part of it comes down to lifestyle. Then there's that healthcare element.
I think that the healthcare element is a big one. Dylan, what's your response to Joshua on the best island for families?
Yeah, Scott brings up probably the biggest and most important point which is healthcare. The other one you want to consider if you have kids is what kind of education do you want to give them? If you want to give them a high quality private school education, you need to be on Oahu. There's not as many options on the neighbor islands. There's very few options on the Big Island. I mean, we do have a very good private school, but it's in Waimea, which is in the central part of the island, and unless you live right there, getting to it is a long drive. I mean, if you're on the Hilo or Kona side, it's an hour plus drive to get to Waimea. So those are two big considerations. But in general, Hawaii is a great place for families. I can speak personally. One of the reasons I bought the house I just bought was because of its size and its ability to bring in my in-laws or my parents if the time comes where that needs to happen. So that's just kind of built into the culture here, is you take care of your parents, and sometimes kids stay longer than you wish they would. But that's definitely the culture here is like that. And housing a lot of times is built for that too. So you'll find a lot of homes, especially in higher price points, where we call them ohanas, where you have a separate studio, mother-in-law type quarters built on to the home or above the garage, or even as a separate structure on the property. So multi-generational families can live together on the same property, but have a little bit of separation and space from each other.
So I think that's a really, really good point as far as the family. Family wise, the state culture is fundamentally ohana, and right. It was popularized by the Disney movie. Ohana means nobody gets left behind. Lilo and Stitch, right? So that's like permeates the culture. I think, Dylan, you brought out a really good point on the specifics that Joshua brought up. One was the healthcare, big deal. I have good friends on the Big Island who, whose her husband has to get certain treatments, and every time he goes for the treatment, they have to fly to Oahu to get the treatment and then fly back, and it becomes all kinds of issues. The schooling was another point that you brought up. Now, Joshua had mentioned that he's got an interest in Maui. And we're gonna talk about this later, but we're gonna be bringing on a Maui guest, a Maui part of our show as well. Do you know? I don't know of anything about private schools in Maui, and what if there are good quality, high quality private schools in Maui. Like, for example, like you mentioned, Oahu has just got several high end, nationally ranked, big time. Punahou, Iolani. There's a couple of, and there's more. What's Maui like? Do you know, Dylan?
I don't know. I know they have a Kamehameha Schools campus, but obviously you're limited in your ability to attend that. But yeah, outside of that,
and Kamehameha Schools, you're limited because you have to be of native Hawaiian descent to attend, even to attend, and then you have to qualify and apply. Have you heard of any, Scott? Have either of you guys heard of any kind of high-end private schools that are in Maui that are on the caliber of either kind of a Punahou or Iolani or
No, and HPA on the Big Island is you hear about it because it's up there as well. But
HPA is the one that Dylan had talked about. That's Hawaii Prep Academy, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yep.
Right, Dylan?
Yep.
Hawaii Prep Academy. Yeah, very, very high end, but it's in Waimea. So now Hawaii Prep Academy, Dylan, if I'm not mistaken, culturally, that's the kind of place where sort of the elite kind of drop off their kids and kind of leave them there, so to speak. It's like a boarding school. It's like a high school boarding school. Not so much of people that live in Waimea send their kids there. Do I have that right, Dylan? Or Scott or Dylan?
There is a boarding element, and then there also are the ones that just attend the school. So but it is kind of known for like the elite families on the Big Island. That's where your kids went, was the HPA.
Okay,
yeah,
Scott.
both my cousins went there, and in fact, I flew over for a real estate event where we were trying to showcase a property and help sell it, and everybody that was coming from all over the world that was dropping their kids off, we had them at this event on this property up Waikiki Ranch, beautiful home with great views, totally catered, music, the whole 9 yards. And there were well over 100 people from all over the world that had brought their kids to go to school there.
Yeah, I think one of my most interesting things to observe when flying in or out of Kona is when you're coming down, is you see all the private planes, all the private jets lined up, right? These private.
They expanded the private jet parking lot recently. So if you come during the wintertime, there's literally like 200 private jets sitting there in a parking lot.
Yeah, it's become a real playground of the uber wealthy. Fly your jet into Kona, then go to your oceanfront mansion. Yeah. Okay. Hey, we have a quick one that I have to give a shout out on this one here. So this is from Sandy Van Stedham, best island to retire. Sandy, I'm so glad that you joined and put your question over here. So, gang, I got to give you all a quick history. Sandy Van Stedham is married to my best friend from high school, from Chicago. I've known Sandy since we were kids. Literally, I think Sandy, I've known Sandy since I was like 16 or 17 years old. So I'm so glad that you got into the show. Best island to retire. Again, this is a battle of the islands. I think it's going to come down to what you think is the kind of lifestyle that you want, what you want to do, the price range that you want. Let's try to hit this in a lightning round for Sandy. Scott, best island to retire and why?
Well, of course it's Oahu. No, it goes back, and this goes back to just any buyer, anyone coming over here to live. Hey, what do you want from a lifestyle? If you like being able to do the arts and have access to all the new trendy restaurants, then Oahu is going to be where you want to be, along with that healthcare element. If you want to be a little more removed and quiet, Oahu has that, but the outer islands have that as well.
Yes. So Dylan, why would you want to move to? Why would you want to retire on the Big Island?
Me personally, I view retirement as a time to slow down and relax. And if you want to do that, you want to be on a neighbor island. If you want to be in a city on an island, then Oahu is the place to be. But if you want that retirement lifestyle where it's just slower and less hectic and more rural, and you want a little piece of land that you can grow some fruit trees on and enjoy the sunset, definitely one of the neighbor islands or the Big Island for sure is a place where you'd want to retire to.
Yeah, so it's like you've got that nice sort of mix. I think the idyllic sense of retirement that a lot of us may have in our heads, I think, goes towards the Big Island. It's this sort of semi-rural kind of thing. You can have a gentleman ranch. You can kind of do your thing. But there's others who want to retire in more of an urban area. There's retire, and the urban sort of lifestyle is definitely on Oahu. I think my wife would not want to retire. I mean, we lived on the Big Island actually for a year and a half, and I realized that, yeah, this is just not going to work for us. But hey, everyone's got to have their thing, right? My wife needs to be near Kahala Mall, so we're going to be near Kahala Mall. So that's where my wife wants to retire. Okay. I think we're coming up to our hour. Let me give everybody a little bit of a thing of what we're going to try to do at our next show over here. So thank you, Sandy. Great seeing you. Great. Thanks for the thing. Yeah. And you're welcome for the shout out, man. It'll go way back. It's so funny. So gang, our next, in 2 weeks, we do this every other Friday. Make sure you get on the newsletter, go to the website and get on so you get the reminders, but we're going to try to go for a Maui show. Maui sort of centric show. So we're going to be bringing on someone that's going to be a Maui expert. So there are going to be 4 of us, and eventually we'll expand to Kauai as well. So we've got a Maui show coming up in 2 weeks, and I'll read this one up, a little bit of our cliffhanger here. So this is from Ralph and Carly in Washington. Let me hold on a second. I don't have it quite here right now. Let's go. Wait. That's interesting. Oh, hold on. There we go. Technical difficulties. Okay. So I got confused. It's not by Joshua in Seattle, it's Ralph and Carly in DC. They're saying we're planning to retire in Maui when COVID-19 is over, but we have 3 questions. Number 1, what are the real estate taxes? Well, we talked about that for full-time single home residents. We are concerned about the drought conditions and water supply on the west coast of Maui. Last year's fires reminded us of California, which we're trying to avoid. And number 3, finally, we hear general references to lower availability of medical treatment on the islands than on Oahu, as we are in our mid-60s, both healthy and active. This is of concern. Can you address the availability of medical services on Oahu? So we have a couple of themes that are coming throughout: the taxes, medical services. I really want to have, I really been wanting to bring on a Maui expert to come with us, and hopefully we're going to have some good news and have our Maui person on our show at our next exciting episode. Dylan Scott, Dylan, is there anything you kind of wanted to kind of add and share a really, really quick closing thing for the show today?
Oh, just thanks everybody for watching, and thanks Peter for putting it on, and looking forward to 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, Scott, anything you want to add to everybody? Oh, go ahead.
And as always, if you guys have specific questions in between, you know how to get a hold of us. Go to the website. Peter can connect you with us, but we're happy to help in between if you got specific questions.
Absolutely. Scott, how about you?
Yeah, thanks for checking in. We enjoy doing this. It's a great way for us to be able to share our knowledge and answer your questions directly. One last thing is Koa Ridge, which is a new development here on the Big Island, 3,500 homes. They're getting ready to bring things out. So reach out to us if you want some information on it. It's going to be single family homes, duplexes, townhouses, and low rise condos. I got the inside scoops on them.
So this is Koa Ridge on the Big Island?
No, on Oahu.
Okay,
Koa Ridge, Castle Cook development, getting ready to kickstart.
Got it. So it's Koa Ridge on Oahu. I think you said Big Island, but that's okay. So Koa Ridge on Oahu is coming up. There's a big.
I'm on vacation already. I'm coming to visit Dylan here in a couple.
That's right. Yeah, I know, man. We got to do one show in Dylan's Lanai. Yeah, that'd be kind of really awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I see the competition here. Next week, I'm going to have to come to you from my Lanai.
Yeah, so that's what's going. Yeah, that's another sneak peek, everybody. So Scott's planning his Lanai shot. He's got a beautiful view of Diamond Head. So that's going to be our little friendly island competition. All right, folks. I think that's it. I want to welcome you all and thanks you all for. I want to thank you all for being a part of it. It's really fun for us to do this. It's a great way for us to share and have you get to know us and get to know what's going on. So we're going to be back in 2 weeks. Click on the links in the description. Get onto the newsletter. You'll be reminded, and we'll see you then. So until then, folks, aloha. Have a good one, everybody.